You don't always see suffering, not the real kind. Not the kind that sits quietly behind a calm face, not the kind that learns how to smile while falling apart inside. Because the human mind is a master of concealment. It hides, it adapts, it survives, and sometimes it breaks in silence. You think pain is loud, you think struggle announces itself, but most of the time it whispers. Inside thoughts you cannot control, inside stories you didn't choose, inside meanings that feel real even when they are not. And that's where it begins, not in the world outside, but in the world within. Because what hurts you is not always what happens, it's what you believe it means. You see, we are taught to look at problems as events, a failure, a mistake, a crime, a consequence. But the truth is, events don't carry meaning, you give them meaning. Your mind takes raw reality and turns it into a story about who you are, a story about what the world is, a story about what is possible and what is not. And once that story forms, it becomes your reality, even if it's distorted, even if it's incomplete, even if it's quietly destroying you. Think about this. Two people, same situation. One sees it as the end, the other sees it as a turning point. Same event, different meaning. And that difference changes everything. It changes behavior, it changes emotion, it changes identity. This is the invisible mechanism behind mental distress. Not just pain, but interpretation of pain. Not just suffering, but the story you build around it. Now bring this into a darker space. Crime, punishment, prison. You think crime is just an action, a decision, a moment. But it's not that simple. Behind every action, there is a mind. And behind every mind, there is a story. A story shaped by fear, by environment, by neglect, by anger that had nowhere to go. You don't justify it, you don't excuse it, but you try to understand it, because without understanding, you only repeat the cycle. Society often believes in a simple equation. Crime happens, punishment follows, as if pain can cancel pain, as if suffering can erase suffering. But look deeper. What is punishment really doing? Is it correcting behavior, or just responding to it? Is it creating awareness, or reinforcing identity? Because if a person enters prison with anger and leaves with more anger, what has really changed? You see, imprisonment was never meant to be revenge, at least not in principle. It was meant to be interruption, a pause, a space where harmful patterns could stop and reflection could begin. But reflection doesn't happen automatically. You can lock a body, but not a mindset. You can restrict movement, but not interpretation. And if the environment inside is built on fear, humiliation, violence, then the mind doesn't heal, it hardens. A person who is treated like a monster eventually begins to believe they are one. Not because it's true, but because it becomes the only story available. And the mind always needs a story. This is where most systems fail. They try to control behavior without understanding psychology. They focus on consequence but ignore perception. And perception is where transformation begins. Because if a person cannot see themselves differently, they cannot become different. Now step outside the prison walls. Look at society. Look at people around you. Comparison everywhere. Judgment everywhere. Silence everywhere. Everyone is watching everyone else, but no one is really seeing. And in that silence, people suffer. They think their pain is unique. They think no one else feels this way. So they hide it. They suppress it. They carry it until it becomes part of who they are. Isolation is not just physical, it's psychological. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone because no one understands your story. Or maybe you don't even understand it yourself. And this is where something dangerous happens. When pain is not processed, it transforms into anger, into resentment, into detachment, and sometimes into action. Not always rational, not always controlled, but always meaningful to the person experiencing it. It's not what happens, but what it means to you. This is not just a statement, it's a fundamental truth. One person loses a job and feels worthless. Another loses a job and feels free. Same event, different interpretation, different future. Now imagine a life where every negative experience is interpreted as rejection, as injustice, as proof that the world is against you. What kind of person does that create? What kind of decisions emerge from that mindset? And suddenly, crime is no longer just an action, it becomes an expression, a distorted attempt to reclaim control. This is uncomfortable to accept because it challenges the way we think about responsibility. But understanding is not the same as justification. You can hold someone accountable and still try to understand the mind behind the action. In fact, without understanding, accountability becomes incomplete. Because real change does not come from fear, it comes from awareness. And awareness is not forced, it is discovered. This is where the deeper question begins, not why did this happen, but what does this mean? What does this pain reveal about you? What does this reaction say about your mind? What patterns are repeating without your permission? You are not just living events, you are living interpretations, and most of them are unconscious. This is what Raghav, through the quiet reflections of stones and thorns, often points toward. That life is not a series of external incidents, but an internal construction. A landscape shaped not by reality alone, but by perception, by meaning, by the stories you never question. And when those stories go unexamined, they become your identity. But here's the turning point. Mental distress is not just a problem, it's a signal, a disturbance in the system, a moment where something doesn't align. And instead of escaping it, you can observe it. Instead of suppressing it, you can question it. What am I believing right now? Why does this feel so real? Is this truth or interpretation? These questions change everything, because they break the automatic loop. They create space, and in that space, something new becomes possible. The same applies even in the darkest places, even in prisons, even in broken lives. Transformation is not guaranteed, but it is possible. When the environment allows reflection, when the mind is exposed to new meaning, when a person begins to see themselves not as fixed, but as evolving. Structure helps, education helps, dignity helps, not because they remove consequences, but because they create conditions where awareness can grow. And awareness is the beginning of change. But let's be honest, not everyone changes, not everyone reflects, not everyone questions. Some remain the same, some go deeper into their patterns. That's reality. But that doesn't invalidate the possibility. It only shows that change is not automatic, it is intentional. And that applies to you too, not just to criminals, not just to prisons, to your life, to your mind, to your story. You are not separate from this. You also interpret, you also distort, you also carry meanings that shape your reality. So the real question is not about them, it's about you. What are you holding on to that is quietly shaping your life? What meanings have you accepted without questioning? What story are you living that might not even be true? Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And that's where freedom begins, not outside, but inside. As Stones and Thorns reflects through the voice of Raghav, life will always give you events, unpredictable, uncontrollable, uncertain. But meaning is yours. So choose carefully, or at least be aware of what you are choosing, because your mind is not just experiencing reality, it is creating it. And maybe, just maybe, The prison you are trying to escape is not made of walls. It's made of thoughts. So ask yourself, are you trapped by your circumstances or by your interpretation of them? If this made you pause, if this made you think, then don't ignore it. Write your thoughts in the comments. Share what this meant to you. And if you're ready to question your own story, like, subscribe, and share. Because sometimes the smallest awareness creates the biggest change.